Dear attendees, thank you for joining on time. We will start the session in just about a minute. Thank you for joining on time. We will start the session in just about a minute. Hello, everyone, and a very good morning and a very warm welcome to HSBC interactive webinar on gearing up for a smoother drive with our knowledge partners, CRISIL. My name is Subhash Davra, and I'm part of the B2B marketing team, and I'll be your MC for today. In today's session, we take a comprehensive look at the current outlook on the auto components industries and the potential opportunities that lie for the industry. Before we begin today's session, some housekeeping rules. All attendee lines will be muted and video will be disabled during the session. This is so that there is no interruption for the presenters. The Q&A option at the bottom of your menu bars, whether you are on your phones or your laptops, will be open throughout the entire session for your queries. Please feel free to use this option to put in your queries whenever you'd like, and we'll try to take as many as possible at the end of the session. Should we not be able to address your query within the session, we will definitely return to you with answers for them. Please also note that after the session, all registered participants will be given the session presentation, a session podcast, a session snapshot, and the answers to your questions. And with that, I'd like to introduce my first speaker for today, Rahul Sharma. Rahul is the regional head for Western India Business Banking, which is the SME space for HSBC India. Over to you, Rahul. Thank you.
Thank you, Subhash. I hope I'm audible loud and clear.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
So, a very good morning to everyone. While the graph for COVID cases may not have flattened yet, but I think there are some green shoots already visible, whether it is GST collections, manufacturing PMI, railway freight, or park consumption. I think all seems to suggest that the recovery process has already started. Whether this recovery will be V-shaped, L-shaped, or U-shaped, that's something that we'll have to wait and watch. So today, in the sixth episode of HSBC SME Knowledge Series, in collaboration with our knowledge partner CRISIL, we will be covering auto sector, an industry segment that contributes to over 7% to the nation's gross GDP and nearly 22% to the country's manufacturing GDP. So no doubt, performance of this sector has a lot of impact on the macroeconomic numbers for the country. And in the last couple of years, the growth in this sector has been impacted for various reasons, whether it is confusion over BS6 norms, transition to EVs, or expectation about GST cuts, and now COVID-19. But I think the fact remains that the auto sector is one of the biggest employers in India. It is a sector that attracts a significant FDI into the country. India is the fifth largest market and the fourth largest producer of auto. And it is for this reason that the country or the global measures are looking at India not only as a big market, but also for setting up their manufacturing units in India, given the significant cost advantage the country has to offer. And today, we will hear from our expert from CRISIL on their views and estimate on revival of this sector. So to begin the session, let me introduce our expert speaker today. I'm glad to welcome Gaurav Chattopadhyay from CRISIL. Having spent over 5 years at CRISIL, Gaurav has the domain expertise in automobiles and automotive components. He also oversees sectors like farm equipment, domestic freight transportation, and automotive castings. His area of work ranges across demand assessment, assessment of profitability, impact of changing trends in competition, and technology on demand. So without much ado, let me hand over the session to Gaurav for his sectoral insights. Over to you, Gaurav.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul, for this introduction. I'll be taking you through the auto component deck for this presentation. So, automobile demand in fiscal 20 and fiscal 21 has been impacted greatly because of lower demand. In fact, automobile demand in fiscal 21 is at decadal lows. Even if you look at fiscal 20 levels as well, automobile demand is at a 3 to 5 year low. So this clearly shows that overall trajectory of automobile demand is at a very low end. Unlike automobile OEMs, auto component manufacturers do not solely derive their demand from domestic production that happens in the country. They also get demand from various other segments like exports and replacement, which contribute to around 40% of the total demand. Moreover, auto component manufacturers can also divide their whole income into various vehicle segments as well. That is commercial vehicles and tractors. Thus, which have actually performed diametric opposite in this fiscal. Thus, in the next 30 minutes, I'll take you through various how auto component demand assessment will pan out in the next 2 years. Assess how SMEs will be behaving in fiscal 20 in fiscal 21 and fiscal 22 through a cluster-wise analysis and also analyzing their financial performance. We'll finally end this session by looking at various opportunities that are in front of auto component manufacturers, namely BS6 norms and electric vehicles. Let me begin with the key messages. Auto component revenues is expected to decline by around 12% in FY21, with all segments being impacted. Growth in fiscal 22 is expected to be around 17%. The reason why demand for auto components is actually falling is because demand for all the three drivers for auto component demand, that is OEM demand, export and replacement, are negative. OEM demand is negative because of a sharp degrowth in OEM production. CV is a main culprit here. Export demand is expected to recover faster than domestic demand because COVID cases are actually plateauing globally, and we are seeing a spurt in global orders as well. Replacement demand typically tends to be stable. Demand for replacement comes from the population park of vehicles and not from new vehicle production. Thus, demand for replacement tends to be stable. However, in this time, because of lower movement of vehicles, replacement has also been delayed, and thus replacement demand is lower this year. BS6 norm is increasing component intensity of vehicles and which is indirectly aiding OEM demand. Operating performance of auto component manufacturers is expected to be weakened in fiscal 21 by around 200 basis points, but improve in fiscal 22. Large auto component players who have built up very strong balance sheets are able to withstand this period of low demand. However, smaller auto component players may find it difficult. Moreover, auto component players who are catering more to commercial vehicles will see pressure. A factor which is impacting demand for SMEs or rather financial strength of SMEs is the higher working capital requirement. We believe working capital requirements to increase by around 10 to 15 days in fiscal 21. Electric vehicles and BS6 norms together presents as opportunities for auto component manufacturers, which we'll see in the subsequent slide. To understand how automobile demand will pan out in fiscal 21 and 22, we would like to discuss how macroeconomy will be impacting it. We all know that COVID crisis has actually impacted demand in terms of for automobile demand by way of lower GDP. Globally, it has been impacted. In Q1 also, Q1 GDP for India has fallen by around 24%. Net, we believe for fiscal 21, overall fiscal 21 GDP to fall by around 9%. Because of this, corporate revenues is expected to fall and discretionary spending will also be impacted. This will impact demand for discretionary products like automobiles. Inflation, although is going to inch up slightly in fiscal 21, will not play a major role as it is largely being contained. Fiscal deficit combined, that is state plus centered as a percent of GDP, is expected to be at around 11%. This is peculiarly high and this will inhibit government's ability to spend going ahead. Exchange rate is expected to remain stable at 74, which will be very good for smoother functioning of import-export market. GNPA, which had earlier increased in FY18 by to around 11.6%, is expected to again reach those similar levels in FY21. Because of government intervention, GNPA had actually fallen in the preceding 2 years. However, COVID crisis has made it worse. This will impact the lending capabilities of various banks and NBFCs, which will in turn impact automobile financing. So we have looked at how macro will impact demand for automobiles. I'll give you a good layout of what are the factors that will impact auto component demand by your various three segments. In the current auto component segment is around 3,200 rupees billion. It has been growing at a growth of around 6% CAGR over the past 5 years. The key component of demand is OEM demand, which is around 62%. To understand how OEM demand will pan out, we have to study how production of various automobile segments will look like in the next 2 years. CV demand is to be impacted greatly because of lower freight demand and bad transporter profitability and axle norms, because of which even after a fall of around 32% in the previous fiscal, it will fall around 29% in fiscal 21. Personal mode of transportations like passenger vehicles and two-wheelers will fall by around 15 to 20% as income sentiments remain weak. Tractor demand expected to be increased by around 12%. That's majorly because of better farm income through the last Rabi crop output was very much favorable. The current Kharif rainfall is also being pretty good. That's why we believe that tractor demand is expected to be around 12%, aided by government support. Going ahead, all automobile demand segments is expected to be increasing by over a low base in the coming fiscal. If you look at overall demand for automobiles in fiscal 21, in volume terms, it is falling by around 18%, taking an average of this. However, OEM demand, we believe, in value terms, is expected to fall by around 13%. The gap of around 5% is because of increased component intensity. That is for the BS6 norm that was implemented in fiscal 21. Prices of two-wheelers and commercial vehicles is actually falling, is actually increasing by around 8 to 15%. And that is leading to this increased component intensity. Net, in terms of exports and replacement, both are expected to fall by around 11% in fiscal 21. And together in fiscal 21, we'll see automobile production to fall by around 12%. In fiscal 22, growth will be seen over a low base. So we have all discussed how, in general, how the overall automobile demand will be impacted. Going ahead, we will discuss each and every segment in detail. We'll start with OEM demand, which is directly linked to automobile production. To understand OEM demand, we have divided demand for these four vehicle segments into four categories: demand, supply, finance, and cost. Demand has divided into three segments, namely income sentiments, primary and secondary demand. Because of weak GDP and corporate profitability, urban income is impacted the most. This will be a bad sign for passenger vehicles and two-wheelers. While, on the other hand, poor transporter profitability is impacting income sentiments for CV purchase. As iterated earlier, farm income is positive, and this has translated into higher primary demand for farming for tractors, while the other segments is impacted in terms of primary demand. For secondary demand as well, for all the four segments, secondary demand is actually impacted. Take, for example, taxis and cab aggregators. In fiscal 22, this segment accounted for around 10% of the total demand for passenger vehicles. This has shrunk to only 1% in H1 of FY21 because cab aggregator sales have been falling around 80% in retail terms over there in the past 6 months. In the supply side, needless to say, supply constraints has been lower, or there has been supply constraints in Q1 of fiscal 21 for all vehicle segments. Model launches has been positive for passenger vehicles by way of more UV launches, while inventory buildup is a peculiar feature that is aiding demand for commercial vehicles. Why commercial vehicles is being impacted positively is because in mid of March, dealers and OEMs were more keen in liquidating BS4 inventory, and thus they did not offtake BS6 vehicles to dealers. And as the lockdown hit by the end of March, OEMs were unable to offtake BS6 vehicles to dealers. So at the end, for CVs, dealer inventory was at near zero by the end of March 2020. and thus we started fiscal 21 at near zero inventory level. As inventories slowly build up to normal levels of around 27 days, inventory, this will lead to higher wholesale offtake by around 8% as compared to retail offtake. This will be a positive for demand. So in fiscal 21, our forecast for CV demand is around minus 30%. Had it not been for this 8% bump up, our wholesale offtake would have been around minus 38%. Finance is also a key parameter that is impacting demand. It's also shown by the finance penetration. In this, we can say that for every 100 CVs that is sold, 95 of them are sold under financing. The value is similarly high for passenger vehicles and tractors. Two-wheeler industry typically has low finance penetration. Thus, in this scenario where financing environment can get curtailed because of high NPS, it is bad for sectors like commercial vehicles. Non-captive financiers are the ones who do not have OEM backing. Lending from such financiers are expected to be curtailed because they will be focusing more on collections in this period. And sectors which have high share of non-NBFC or non-captive NBFC financing, generally that is commercial vehicles, will also be impacted. Cost is an important parameter that impacts demand for vehicles. Typically in a year, cost increases by way of 3 to 5% every year. This year is particularly peculiar for FY21, especially for two-wheelers and commercial vehicles. That's majorly because BS6 price increase and lower LTVs is leading to increase in cost of acquisition. Thus, because of these factors, our view for domestic automobile demand for fiscal 21 and 22 are minus 30% for commercial vehicles, FY21, minus 17 for two-wheelers and passenger vehicles. All these three segments are expected to grow over a low base in FY22. While for tractors, the growth will be seen at around 10% because of better farm income and primary demand. The growth will be further higher in fiscal 22 as demand is will be aided by better reservoir levels at the for the Rabi crop that will be sown and harvested in the month of March of 2021. So we have discussed how various demand drivers will pan out. Now we'll discuss how COVID-19 is actually impacting retail sales. To understand this, we have divided India's districts into rural and urban. Rural districts are the ones, according to us, that have more than 60% population in rural areas. Our understanding is that rural cumulative case share of cases of COVID-19 has increased by 22 times between June to September in rural areas, while it has increased by only 9 times for urban areas. So clearly, cumulative basis, there has been an increase in cases in rural areas. The same can be shown in a different way by looking at fresh COVID cases on a monthly basis. In April, May, and June, out of the total cases reported in the country, 83%, around 83% were in urban areas for Q1, while around 20% was in rural areas. This has increased to around 35 to 40% in Q2 for rural areas. This clearly shows that there has been a rather surge in COVID cases in the period in Q2, and the reason is why this is important. This is important because of all the rural areas that we are talking about, 47% sales of two-wheelers, 32% sales of passenger vehicles, and 41% sales of LCVs happen in these regions. Because of lower rural case share, their share had increased for all these three segments in Q1 of FY21. However, because of increased COVID cases, their share again has come down. It's important to monitor how this case share will actually pan out going ahead. Harvesting for the current Kharif crop is going to take place. And if COVID cases actually increases in the rural areas, that can impact farm income sentiments. However, as COVID cases have just trended marginally lower in September, we have not factored in a major impact of this. However, if this trend change and the trend increases further in the month of October and November, we might have to, there might be a pressure in demand for motorcycles among two-wheelers, LCVs, and tractors. So we have talked about how OEM demand will be impacted, that is 60% of demand. Now we'll go on to export, which is 20% of auto component demand. Exports, typically between FY10 and FY15, hovered at around 10%, 15% share of our total production. This increased to around 18% between FY15 and FY20. So clearly, there has been a shift or a thrust towards exports in the past 5 years. However, despite this, our share of exports in global auto component trade is only 2%. If you look at in the overall autocom trade for the globe is around 400 billion, while it's around 8.8 billion for India. Thus, there is a long way to go for India to increase its export share. In terms of countries, what we understand is that US and Europe form a major share of above 50% for our exports. Consequently, Europe and USA also form a major share of global imports as well. Thus, a key thing to look into, if you go country by country, is that USA accounts for 24% of our sales, of our exports, while overall USA accounts for only 18% of global imports. Clearly, we export more to US than the global average. The same characteristic can be attributed to Italy as well. On the other hand, the situation is opposite for Germany. Our export share is around 7%, while Germany imports 10% of global auto component imports. Thus, there is still a way to go for us to improve our share in Germany. The same case can be actually applied to France, Spain, Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, Canada, and Mexico. Many of these countries, we have already a strong base. Say Germany, we have Mexico, we have France. In these countries, it's easier for us to improve our share because we already have a base. Thus, this is a clear opportunity for auto component manufacturers to increase our exports. So we have actually analyzed what are the major countries who we export to. Now we would like to analyze what we export. Our analysis suggests 40% of our exports are to technology complex components. That is engine components, electricals, and drive transmission. It's good to note that we have good share of critical components, because this shows that we have strong connection with foreign OEMs as well, because to manufacture such critical components, you need good time. In the past 5 years, what we have seen is demand for electricals, drive transmission have increased at a rapid pace. However, demand for interiors and body chassis, which are of lower complexity, has not increased that much. So this clearly shows there is some push towards focus towards higher complex manufacturing or exports of such components. So we have discussed what we export and to whom we export. Now we'll have to together look into how will that impact our demand forecast for fiscal 21. This graph on the top left shows that COVID cases have plateaued to around 300,000 marks after August to September. Although there has been a minor uptick in October. Our major export destinations are USA and Europe. Key vehicle segments that we cater to are the Class 8 truck market in the USA and the passenger vehicle segment in the Europe. So it's important to understand what is actually driving demand for these vehicle segments in these countries. In USA, there has been a growth in Class 8 truck orders in Q2, and that is something positive to go by. Even if you analyze freight demand drivers and factors that is impacting transport profitability in USA, that is still positive. Thus, there has been a surge in orders for Class 8 trucks. In Europe as well, although sales have plummeted to around minus 78% in the peak of the lockdown period in Europe, the sales have actually increased to around 8% in August. So thus, there is something to cheer about in terms of automobile demand in Europe and USA. This is leading to a fall of around only 11% in exports in fiscal 21 as compared to a 13%, although aided by a higher component intensity in OEMs. So thus 11% fall in exports and a 10% increase in fiscal 22 will be the trend that we'll see for exports in the coming years. So we have discussed OEM demand and exports that cater to around 80%. Now what remains is replacement, and we'll also touch upon imports in the coming slides. In terms of replacement, which covers 20% of our overall automobile production, its demand is directly linked to vehicular movement. In this unconventional time, we had to seek for unconventional data as well. We had to look at Google mobility trends, COVID-19 community mobility reports. That is reports provided by Google, which actually gives a trend on how movement for various activities have actually panned out in different countries. This graph at the top shows, as compared to a baseline a baseline movement that happened in the month of February pre-COVID, to what extent movement is lower in various time periods. So even if you see the blue line and the gray line, these are still minus 30% lower than the pre-COVID levels. So this clearly shows that workplaces and public transport, which are key demand drivers for automobile demand, is still lower. And this clearly shows that there is still a long way to go for normalization to hit for people movement. This is also shown by lower diesel consumption and petrol consumption as well, which have been lower till August. Because of these factors, lower movement of vehicles will lead to lower wear and tear of parts, and that will lead to a fall in replacement demand, which is unlike that we have seen in any years previously. And thus we'll see a 11% fall in replacement demand. However, if our assumption is that movement will be normal in fiscal 22, and we will reach movement to the levels of fiscal 20 levels, and thus replacement demand will also reach fiscal 20 levels in fiscal 22. A major factor that is important for replacement is a good proportion of our replacement is coming from imports. Thus, understanding imports is also very much important. In fact, 70% of our imports go to the replacement market. A majority of the components that we actually import are engine components, suspension and braking, interiors, body chassis, drive transmission, and so on. In terms of countries who we import from, majority of the countries are in the Asian countries. That is China, Korea, Japan, Singapore, Thailand. These together contribute around 60% of total imports. Thus, if you look at these countries, our major import destinations are from Asia. In terms of demand that we are seeing for fiscal 21, we believe that in fiscal 21, imports will fall by around 11%. That's because of lower OEM demand and replacement demand. In fiscal 22, demand is expected to pick up by around 15% as demand normalizes. A key factor that will impact imports going ahead is an increased thrust towards Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. Because of this, to understand what could be the impact, and if we are to reduce our imports from countries like China, we have done a case study. In this case study, what we have done is we have divided components based on in these component segments. We have actually ordered them based on complexities. So engine components being the highest complex according to us, they are at the top, and we have actually ordered them in a descending order. And the column here shows what is the share of imports. In terms of the column to the next shows what is the share of China in the total imports of these components. So 8% denotes 8% of engine components were imported from China in FY15. This increased to 14% in FY20. Thus, there has been a surge in imports of engine components from China. The same is the case for components like interiors, body chassis, and cooling systems. Thus, the share of overall import share from China has increased from 14% in FY15 to around 20% in FY19. Now, if we are to focus on reducing the import share, we would need to undergo import substitution program for these major component segments, that is engine components, drive transmission, steering, and miscellaneous, because these contribute to a higher share of overall imports and a higher share of China in terms of imports. So if we are to reduce imports for these categories highlighted in red, we would be able to easily undergo import substitution. These are the segments that we need to focus for import substitution. So we have discussed OEM demand, exports, replacement, and also imports. Now we have a view of how all these segments will actually intermingle. However, what would be the situation for SMEs? To understand SMEs, we have divided SMEs into 8 clusters. These clusters have been arranged in a descending order of their estimated market size. The column here shows what is the CAGR for the past 2 years. We can see that for the Rajkot Sanand cluster, the growth in the past 2 years has been higher because of capacity addition that has taken place in this time period by way of capacity plans added for Maruti Suzuki. Even on the other hand, Pantnagar, which is largely catering to commercial vehicles, had fallen by 4 to 6% in the past 2 years because of higher dependence on CVs. In terms of production as well, we are seeing a greater production constraints in regions like NCR, Chennai, and Pune, and to some extent in Pantnagar and Aurangabad. In terms of demand for fiscal 2-year CAGR between fiscal 20 and 22, that is the next 2 years, demand is to be buoyant for the Ludhiana cluster because of greater share of demand from tractors, and for Pantnagar cluster as well because of a low base that was seen in the previous year. And also in fiscal 22, demand for CVs is to be increased on a low base. So we have understood what is the how demand for various clusters will look like. To understand how operationally SMEs will be impacted, we need to look at various cost parameters which will impact margins for SMEs. A key cost among them is raw material cost. Steel is a primary component that goes into manufacturing of vehicles. Generally, raw material prices are typically passed on with a quarterly lag. Because of this, the lower prices that we have seen till June was seen as a positive till H1 of fiscal 2021. However, as prices are seen rising, the benefit that auto component manufacturer has seen by way of lower raw material prices will actually fade away, and thus net impact in H2 with respect to raw material prices will not be favorable. Despite this, on an average, still raw material prices expect to fall marginally in fiscal 21 and increase to some extent in fiscal 22. Thus, fiscal 22 will see a negative impact of raw material prices. So, after we finish raw material prices, typically we would like to understand how SMEs margins differ from large players. Generally, to understand this, what we have done is we have taken around 103 companies which are leading auto component manufacturers and took a past year average of their EBITDA margin. Again, for SMEs, we have taken around 625 companies with revenues less than 250 crores, which are auto component manufacturers, and took an average for their past 3 years EBITDA margins. Our analysis suggests that SME players' margins is nearly half of what large players are. Because of this, a fall of around 200 basis points in margin because of lower capacity utilization will be greatly felt by SME players. In fact, with net margins at around 1.9%, it is quite easy to see that there is a possibility for many auto component SMEs to have net losses in fiscal 21. Thus, what our understanding is that SMEs are impacted because of COVID crisis more so than the larger players. Their margins and other ratios are also seen are also trending lower because of this. However, there is ray of hope because FY22, because of higher automobile demand, will be positive. A peculiar characteristics for SMEs is their increasing increasing working capital days that we have been seeing in fiscal 21. Working capital days, it is expected to be higher by around 10 to 15 days. And that is something that we would be of concern because of, especially in Q1, because of, especially in the initial period of the of fiscal 21, because of lower demand. This is a key monitorable. In terms of how opportunities can actually take hold for SMEs, typically ROCEs for SMEs have been higher. So, needless to say, there is scope that if SMEs invest in future opportunities, there could be something gains that SMEs can attain. So where does the opportunity lie in the coming period? We have actually looked into two opportunities majorly: the near-term opportunities and medium-term opportunities. In the short-term opportunities, what we understand is BS6 norms will be the key driver as for opportunity. BS6 norm has increased component intensity for vehicles. Two-wheelers and CV prices have increased by 8 to 15%. And because of this, uh, these increased prices is because of addition of components in engine components, exhaust management, and electricals, which are catered towards lowering of emission. Because of these increased components names are mentioned at the right hand side. These components being added, the increased component density has led to higher lower revenue decline as compared to the others for these three segments in fiscal 21. However, segments which majorly cater to OEM demand, like interiors and body chassis, have been majorly impacted in this system. Moreover, another key thing to note is that BS6 norms will also increase our export potential, especially to Europe, because Europe, Euro 6 and BS6 norms are largely akin. Thus, there is some opportunity for auto component players to take because of BS6 norms. Another opportunity in the long term is electric vehicles. To understand how electric vehicles demand will pan out in the next 5 years, we have devised a framework where we have looked into three major determining factors: demand, enabling environment, and supply. Within demand, we have looked at total cost of acquisition (TCO) and total cost of ownership (TCO) and cost of acquisition, that is COA. So COA is what is the amount that we pay for buying a vehicle, while TCO is the amount we actually use for running a vehicle. A peculiar feature of electric vehicles is that their cost of acquisition is actually higher, while their cost of ownership tends to be lower as compared to internal combustion engine. So vehicles which are able to run more, like cab aggregators, LCVs, and autos, three-wheelers, tend to are able to offset the higher cost that they are paying for purchasing a vehicle. Thus, these three parameters are positive for these three segments. On the other hand, COA is determined by incentives as well. Personal vehicles do not have FAME incentives, and that is a thing that is is actually holding back demand for EVs in this segment. In terms of enabling environment as well, dependence on public charging is one of the key and important factors that will determine EV adoption. Personal cars, generally cab aggregators, buses, and LCVs would require public charging infrastructure. A major factor that will be determining demand for two-wheelers is their lesser dependence on public charging for two-wheelers. Because of innovative design, there are more number of two-wheelers with detachable batteries, where you can take the batteries and take it home, charge, and again put it back. Because of this, there is less dependence of public charging infrastructure as well. Moreover, an average ride distance is also on the lower end for a two-wheeler, and thus it's easier for a two-wheeler to adopt to EVs. On the other hand, government focus is also there to reduce pollution. To do that, government is focusing on cab aggregators, two-wheelers, and e-autos for this. In terms of supply, there is a saying: supply creates its own demand. At least for the supply front, there is not much supply that is present here, at least only at a moderate level. There is also less number of large OEMs that are present, because generally there is more trust with prominent names in the OEM segment, and because of that, because of less number of large OEM presence, demand for two-wheelers, LCVs, and e-autos may be partially hindered. Despite this, our view is that especially for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, because of lower dependence on public charging, increased government focus, and moderate cost of ownership and cost of acquisition, two-wheeler EV adoption to be on a higher end. Moreover, e-auto as well, because of better demand parameters and government focus, there is also a case for e-autos to have a greater adoption. In fact, our analysis suggests that two-wheelers and three-wheelers to spearhead EV adoption in FY25. Our analysis suggests that 10% of two-wheeler sales, especially scooters, will be EVs. Scooters typically have around 33-35% of our overall market. Even if one third of these vehicles get converted into EVs, we'll see around a 10% share. In terms of e-autos as well, we'll see a good deal of movement towards e-auto because of the need to reduce pollution in metros. So what does this mean for a auto component manufacturer? Because of EVs, there will be lesser need for drive transmissions, engines, and exhaust management systems. And this will be replaced by battery management systems, BMS, lithium-ion cells, internal cell supports, motor sensors, and so on. So auto manufacturers who are dealing with these parts would need to migrate to these components in the future. However, although this is disruption, this is not a cause of concern because as we had explained earlier, EV adoption is still at least 3-4 years away. And because of that, there's plenty of time and ample opportunity for many auto component manufacturers to shift to such components. Thus, even for SMEs as well, they would also need to cater to making sub-components for these larger EV components. So all in all, I'll summarize the opportunities that I have discussed. Lower export share is a key opportunity that we would need to focus on. Moreover, the key export destinations that I have highlighted are also the ones that we should focus. Import substitution amid Atmanirbhar Bharat is also an area that we would need to look into. Even for BS6 norms, increased component intensity and increased export potential is a positive. Focus on making subcomponents for electric vehicle components is also an opportunity that lie ahead in the near future. So nets, there are opportunities galore for auto components manufacturers going ahead. With this, I hand over the session to Subhash.
Thank you, Gaurav, for an extremely comprehensive outlook on the auto component sector and the EV sector as well. Ladies and gentlemen, before I start asking questions that we already have, I would like to remind you that you can use the Q&A segment at the bottom of your screens to ask any questions that you think may be useful to you. The CRISIL team and the HSBC team here are here for you. I'll start with my first question, Gaurav. How can MSMEs tackle their capital capacity utilization problem? All the SMEs in the auto component sector, according to our question asker, are facing this issue because the last 2 year sales have been pretty flat and low.
A quick answer to this would be that auto manufacturers have actually been, especially the larger players, have especially been very cagey in actually building up capacities in the recent 2-3 years. That's because of the BS6 norm, they have been focusing more on these technological components and rather than building up capacities. And that has actually aided in reducing the impact of lower capacity utilization because of this period. However, we believe that going ahead, demand will actually pick up, especially in the second half, and that would limit the negative that we are seeing in terms of lower capacity utilization. So we would have faced the brunt in H1 in terms of lower capacity utilization. All the things going ahead are more rosy going ahead.
Okay, thanks, Gaurav. Now, my next question is actually a composite, and the question is to both HSBC, Rahul, and Gaurav as well. It's a long question, so just bear me on this. Given the increase in the working capital cycle, banks still being slightly risk-averse in lending to SMEs, and the end of the moratorium with the likelihood of interest kicking in soon, which could potentially increase the working capital intensity. Will the downside risk of automotive component SMEs be more prominent in the near to medium term, or will it be a strong incremental demand growth likely, offsetting these risks to a considerable extent?
So I think I would like Pushan to address this.
Sure.
Yeah. Hi. So in terms of the demand side, uh, the question is from Tejas, right, Subhash?
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of the demand side, I think like Gaurav mentioned in the previous answer, I think the worst of the COVID impact we have already seen. Uh, we've already stepped into fiscal 21 on a weak footing. And by the second half of this fiscal, I think demand sentiments are expected to improve. In fact, if we see one of the segment which is doing well, tractors, there the capacity utilizations are quite high. So when the curve changes, it will change at a rapid pace because there's a lot of pent up demand in the system as well. So on the demand side, we feel that there will be some offset that will happen going ahead. Although a word of caution is that we are on a very low base, so we will see optical demand recovery in the first year. Even with a growth of say about 20%, we will still not reach the fiscal 19 levels. So that's the only word of caution here. On the banking side, possibly, Subhash, do you want to address that to somebody at HSBC?
Sure. I'd like either Anurag or Rahul to take this.
Yeah. Let me. Okay. Uh, Let me take it. Anurag here. So, see, the question is very pertinent. That right now, actually, despite the banks being loaded with cash, still the lending levels are very low, and that is more reflective of the credit risks that the banks are perceiving, and therefore the banks are parking a lot of money with RBI right now at a very low rate. So, the ones to put it very straight, the promoters who have actually shown more discipline in the past with their borrowing and have good access to capital will be winners here, because what we expect is some kind of consolidation will happen in this space, and the ones who have kept some powder dry for a rainy day will be the ones which will have direct access to capital as well as more access to the lending uh, availability from the banks as well. So, so the straight answer would be that yes, there would be access to capital, but and as well as access to borrowing, but it will be limited to the ones who have shown more discipline, irrespective of the size of the SME enterprise that we are talking about. It will be the past discipline and the track record which will be their driving factor here. That will lead to more access. So that's how it is going to pan out, as how we are looking at it.
Thanks,
Hope that
Anurag,
answers
for
the
that.
question. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that candid answer. I'll move on to my next one, back to Crystal. What would be the value share of auto components in EV versus ICE?
So, in terms of electric vehicles, so for at least internal combustion engines, the three component segments that we have talked about, that would actually be replaced by electric vehicle components would be around 40 to 45%. So that those components will be replaced by batteries, BMS, and other components. Although the value of these components are at the moment that would be replaced is actually higher for ICE for EVs, because overall price of a electric vehicle is higher than a corresponding internal combustion engine. That is actually going to come down as we move ahead with lowering battery price.
Sure, thanks. I'll move on to my next question quickly. What do you think that because of the pandemic, larger auto component players could potentially become more stronger, either by consolidation or potential insolvencies of smaller SMEs? And if yes, which of the segments you see most vulnerable?
What we believe is that although there is pressure that is felt by the smaller SMEs, going ahead, we believe that larger auto manufacturers will be more supportive of the smaller SMEs, because we would need the tier one, tier two, tier three operation structure that is currently prevailing, and because of that, uh, we believe that going ahead, there will be some support that will be catered by larger players to smaller players, so that they can prevail this rough period and come out of it as equal partners. So at least for the time being, our assumption is that there will be some support by the larger players to smaller players if things go south further.
Okay, that's a positive outlook, Gaurav. I'll move on to my next one. I'm not sure if you're able to take this. When do you expect the GST rate reduction from 28 to 18% for two-wheelers to happen, if any? If you've got any sense of when that outlook is there?
Yes, so we are actually in the same page as Mr. Miss Mr. Prerna Mehta. Basically, uh, in terms of there has been talks of lowering of GST for especially for two wheelers. The comment was actually taken from the comment that the finance minister had said. However, at least for the moment, uh, uh, at least the data that we have seen from news articles, there is not much movement right now. So we are still hoping for some positive to come out from the GST Council when by way of reduction of GST for two wheelers. However, we have not factored that in our forecast as of now.
Okay, now I've got a question on the EV manufacturing sector with various sub questions. So I'll go a little slow on this. How do you think the Indian automobile sector will really actually adopt EV manufacturing in a step-by-step way in terms of the infrastructure, the manpower, research and development? What are the kind of learnings we can take from developed countries and then apply those, and where are the best scope for opportunities for us as India and the EV sector opportunities for us?
So what we have done is we have done an analysis on to what extent benefit can be attained by manufacturing of EV components in India. What we believe that if we are to become stay relevant as a prominent manufacturing destination and exporters and grow as exporters of auto components, we would need to build up capabilities for exports of EV components as well, because that is the direction that the global developed world is actually heading at. The In terms of battery prices as well, battery prices are falling and expect to fall very much further in the coming years. Even right now in the USA and in Europe, the EV electric vehicle passenger car is very much comparable to a internal combustion engine. So thus there is a need for us to do localization and set up more and more battery manufacturing unit, because we would need to build up capabilities to end to end build electric vehicle in India and then export it, or build components and export these components to the European countries, because in order to build up scale, because at least adoption in India is to take time, but a good way to increase scale is to export components. India being a low cost manufacturing center to some extent, is at an advantage. So, Pushan, do you have any further things to add in this?
No, I think it's fine. Just staying with this question, I've got another question that sort of ties into the same one. When you're looking at the growth projections for EVs, up till FY 2025, to what extent is the infrastructure of the EV segment, which is charging stations essentially, and what you just spoke about, how much of this has been factored into the growth, and how much is still left to chance? If I may.
Yeah, Pushan, please go on.
Yeah, so quite a pertinent question here in terms of the infrastructure. So if you look at the growth projections that we are more bullish on segments where either it makes a lot of economic sense for the transition to happen towards EVs, like say a cab aggregators, because unlike a personal car, which runs only 10,000 kilometers, a cab aggregator runs anywhere between 50,000 to 70,000 kilometers. And the cost of running for a car on diesel would be close to about 4 to 5 rupees per kilometer, whereas it is close to 1 rupee per kilometer on an electric vehicle. So if a guy runs 50,000 kilometers, he ends up saving 2 lakh rupees in a year itself. So either we are bullish in a segment where it makes a lot of economic sense, or from an infrastructure point of view, it does not require too much investment. For example, a two-wheeler where the battery size is only about 2.5 kilowatt hour. So it can be easily picked up, taken home and charged. So you do not rely too much on the government setting up the infrastructure, which we believe will happen, but it might take a little while. And also the third segment where we're bullish is the e-auto. Given that here too, the battery sizes are smaller as well as the government is encouraging cleaner mobility in the first mile and last mile in major metro cities. So this is aligned with the government's vision as well, and it makes economic sense. So these are the three segments where we are more bullish over the next 5 years for the EV adoption to happen. I hope that answers your question, Tejas.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the comprehensive. I've actually got two questions, and then we can move to the closing notes, which are our two final questions. I know you've sort of focused on this, Gaurav, within your presentation, but if you could just give us sort of 1 or 2 line explanation to our guests, how long do you think the COVID impact will pertain or exist within the automobile segment? When do you see the real green shoots come through? That's my first question. If you just like to take that first before I move on to the last one.
So in terms of the real green shoots right now, also in terms of wholesale offtake, at least there has been an increase in demand for, say, uh, uh, passenger vehicles. However, in the retail front, at least, if you look at retail sales for passenger vehicles, retail demand has still been weaker. Our hope is that in the festive season, because of the higher inventory buildup and better schemes, there could be increase in retail offtake of passenger vehicle and also for two wheelers as well. On the other hand, for commercial vehicles, situation does not look very much promising because demand has been so low. Freight demand has still yet to pick up meaningfully and normalize to fiscal 20 level. And because of that, demand for commercial vehicles will still be impacted. So green shoots for CVs will be seen at least on an optical level in Q4 because of a low base, while for in Q3 there will be positive growth for PVs and two wheelers. PVs more so it will be marginally negative because of the majority of the inventory buildup has taken place in Q2. So marginally it could tend lower in terms of wholesale offtake for Q3 for PVs. But net still on an optical level there will be some growth. The real growth will happen in FY22 according to us.
Okay, sure. And just to sort of just quickly finish it off, you already sort of touched on this in the previous answer, but where are you seeing the CV component demand in exports versus domestic? Where's the opportunity lying?
So as we had addressed in the export section, majority of our export component, especially for CVs, goes to the US Class 8 trucks market. So that is the place where we would need to focus. Demand for Class 8 trucks actually is increasing in terms of orders, although on a low base. So this clearly shows that as freight demand is improving, as the fear of COVID-19 dissipates partially in USA, there expected to be more economic activity, and this will lead to more greater demand for Class 8 trucks. However, a thing that we would need to really monitor would be is if at all there is a chance of a second wave in this country, and that could lead to hindrance in demand for Class 8 trucks.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rahul, Gaurav, Anurag, Pushan, for all your inputs, for all your knowledge today. It's been an excellent session on the auto component sector, quite comprehensive. Thank you for everyone who visited this. Before we close for today, I would like to introduce Hetal Gandhi, Director at Crystal Research, to give us the closing notes. And while she does that, I would also request you to look at your screens where I'm launching the poll. This is just customary feedback for us. Please do let us know if today's session was useful to you and it helps us improve our future sessions of the SME Knowledge Series. Over to you, Hetal.
Thank you, Subhash. Please also note we would be having a charticle and podcast that would be released today. We would also be following this up with the next session very soon. So great to have all of you over here. Please be there for the next session as well. Thank you so much from HSBC and CRISIL.
Thank you, Hetal. Thank you. Yes, I would again like to repeat, all the people who have registered today, you will receive from us a session presentation, a session podcast, which is a 6-minute version, which encapsulates the whole session, a session snapshot or charticle, which gives you the primary key takeaways from Gaurav's presentation today, and obviously the session replay in the coming week. So do look out for us in your inboxes. We hope to see you in future sessions of the SME Knowledge Series. Thank you for visiting. Stay safe, and let's keep on the path to recovery. Thank you all. Thank you for visiting.